Out of the darkness came creeping a vision I'd seen once before. It was an oak, ancient and crooked, standing tall atop a windswept mountain. I couldn't recall where I'd seen it before, but it most certainly felt familiar. The tree clawed at the sky with blackened branches, its bark cracked like old leather, its roots half exposed and clinging to rock as though afraid of falling. Wind lashed at me from all sides, sharp as glass. The clouds swirled fast overhead, churning like boiling smoke. The vision changed. I was by a lake now, silent, still. The air hung thick with mist, and the water was smooth as a mirror. Trees loomed along the banks like watching giants. A girl sat by the shore. She had red curls tumbling over her shoulders, glowing like rust in the twilight. Her feet touched the surface of the lake, and she was humming. No melody I recognized, but the sound felt wrong. Too slow, too soft, too much like a lullaby sung over a grave. I tried to see her face, but it was turned away. I stepped closer. Then I saw the shadow. It rose behind her, long and narrow, stretching impossibly tall. Not a figure, not a beast, just a silhouette of something wrong. Like the absence of a soul, shaped into a man. It leaned in. The girl turned. Too late. She screamed, a short, sharp sound that splintered the silence. Then she fell into the water, flailing. The shadow followed, folding over her like ink poured into milk. The surface churned, then stilled. I ran to the edge, but before I could reach it, the scene shifted again. Now I stood on a grey beach, beneath a bruised sky. The wind was colder here, biting through the fabric of my dream. The sea stretched out before me, lifeless and dull, the tide dragging itself up the shore like something exhausted from the weight of centuries. And there, washed up on the sand, was the girl. She lay face down, her hair matted with seaweed and blood. Her dress clung to her like a shroud. I wanted to walk away. Every part of me screamed not to look, but my feet obeyed some silent command. I knelt beside her, my breath coming shallow and quick. With trembling fingers, I reached down and turned her over. My stomach dropped. She was me. My own dead face stared back, skin pale, lips parted, an empty socket gazing into nothing. Salt crusted my lashes. My arms were limp, sprawled at angles that didn't make sense. The next thing I remember is waking to the sound of water. It was soft, almost melodic, like a stream trickling over stones. The sensation of the knife was still with me, as vivid as it had just been pulled from my eye. I flinched, a sharp breath tearing from my throat, and my hands flew to my face. Stiff, dry cloth covered the space where my right eye had been, and beneath it, a deep, raw ache pulsed, like a wound that would never fully close. I pressed my palms into my face, trying to hold myself together, to breathe, but jagged edges of memory scraped against me. The knife, Azura, My eye. The pain. I lay as still as I could, waiting for the surge of panic to pass. The cool air smelled faintly of wet stone and herbs. I felt soft blankets around my body. It was comforting, almost too much so to trust. I listened for any sound that might tell me where I was, or whether the nightmare had followed me here. Footsteps sounded nearby, and I turned my head. It was an elf, a familiar one, with a basin of water and fresh cloths bundled under her arm. Her blue hair was tied loosely in a knot atop her head, and the white paint on her face gleamed under the lantern light. Dhalâra. She knelt beside the bed and set the basin down, her eyes skimming my face with curiosity, never fully meeting my gaze. "You're awake?" I blinked, the motion sending a dull ache through my bandaged socket. My mouth was dry, and everything felt slow, like I was stuck between sleep and waking. "Try not to move too much," Dhalâra said, dipping a cloth into the basin. "It'll hurt worse if you struggle." As if it could hurt worse. Yep. She pressed the cool cloth to my forehead, dabbing away sweat. Her touch was delicate, as if I were something fragile. I wanted to pull away, to tell her to leave me alone, but my limbs were too heavy to move. She worked in silence, wiping my face and neck. There was no malice in her hands, only a strange, distant care that brushed against me. I hated her for being gentle, hated the pity in her touch. The words I wanted to say tangled in my throat, sharp but unspeakable. "You're safe here. You can rest." "Safe? Here?" I scoffed, the slight twitch of my face blasting a jolt of pain through my empty socket. The pain made me grimace, which only made it worse. "Easy," Dhalâra said, unwrapping the bandage with care. A sharp, resinous scent drifted up as the cloth came away. The wound felt strange, numb at the edges but hot and raw beneath. I tensed, bracing for her to stitch the socket shut, but instead, she reached into a jar and scooped out a smear of dark paste. "I'll just apply a little more gloom balm. It will keep the wound from festering." The substance gleamed oddly, as if lit from within, and when she pressed it into the wound with careful fingers, I swore I felt it stir beneath my skin, like it was seeping deeper on its own, creeping into the raw tissue. I stayed silent, biting back every bitter word that tried to rise. I wanted to push her hands away, but my limbs might have well been nailed to the bed for all the good they did me. "I know you're hurting," she said. My eye flicked to her hands, her fingertips marked by old scars. Tiny, jagged lines around her nails, as though someone had clawed at them fiercely. "It will pass. It will strengthen you." I looked away, fixing my glare on the ceiling. Whatever had happened to her fingers, I didn't care. She wrung out the cloth again, the quiet drip of water the only sound in the room. Then she leaned in, pressing the cool fabric against my face. "Azura never meant to hurt you," Dhalâra continued. "It wasn't cruelty. She takes no joy in what happened tonight." Fury twisted in my chest, sharp and suffocating. Azura didn't mean to hurt me. She had carved out my damned eye, for heaven's sake. The thought made me want to scream, but I ground my teeth to keep from speaking. She only does what's necessary. Dhalâra pressed on, reverent and steady. She serves the gods, not herself. And it's not easy for her, either. Oh, yes. Poor Azura. I clenched my jaw, every muscle tightening, as Dhalâra's words cut deeper. Gods! The fact that she could even entertain such a notion and say it so calmly made my stomach turn. It was as though the world was conspiring to make me the villain of my own suffering. The room around me felt distant. Cracked stone walls threaded with vines, moonlight spilling in through slender windows. I forced myself to focus on those details, trying to ground myself. Outside, the faint sounds of the distant feast drifted in. We must be in one of the higher tiers of the monastery, I thought, removed from the chaos below. Dhalâra reached for a small cup of liquid from the bedside table. She held it out, her black eyes gleaming faintly in the lantern light. Here, you need to drink. I stared at the cup, resisting the urge to slap it away. But my throat was raw and dry, and I knew I didn't have the luxury of pride. Reluctantly, I let her press the cup to my lips. The liquid was cool and metallic tasting, like water drawn from a deep well. Each sip sat heavy in my gut. My hands trembled, and I hated how my body betrayed me by needing what this bitch offered. Good, Dhalâra whispered, brushing a damp strand of hair from my forehead. I turned my head away from her touch, gripping the cup tighter. She didn't press me further. Instead, she folded the cloth neatly beside the basin, as if every small movement had to be precise and orderly. You're safe here, she said again. Azura only wants what's best for you. She... Don't. My voice cracked, brittle and weak. Dhalâra's lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't argue. The awkward smile made me want to slap her. I sank deeper into the bed, loathing everything. The softness of the blankets, the quiet care in Dhalâra's hands, the way my body felt like a prisoner to its own frailty. The cup grew heavier with each sip, but I forced myself to finish. I would need my strength. Whatever game Azura was playing, I wouldn't survive it by being weak. Sleep pulled at me, slow and relentless. My limbs grew heavy, my thoughts drifting like leaves on a river. I don't remember when I slipped under, whether I surrendered or exhaustion simply claimed me. But the dreams came anyway. They weren't the dreams in any comforting sense. They were jagged and fragmented, memories I couldn't escape. Tentacles dragging through mud, eyes blinking in all directions at once, claws scraping wet stone. And the knife, sliding beneath my eyelid. The unbearable pain. Even in sleep, it clung to me. When I cracked my eye open again, the edges of the room were softening with the first hint of dawn. Pale morning light streamed through the windows, casting ribbons across the walls. From across the room came the faint scuff of a footstep. I turned my head and saw Dhalâra standing at one of the windows, her silhouette outlined by the creeping dawn. They're leaving, she said quietly, as if speaking more to herself than to me. I didn't respond at first. I didn't care. But something in her voice caught me, a quiet sadness I couldn't ignore. "Does that upset you?" I asked. It seemed like a ridiculous thing to be upset about. Monsters leaving. But Dhalâra turned her head slightly, just enough for the soft morning light to catch the gleam of her black eyes. She held my gaze for a moment, her expression solemn, before looking back out the window. "It is a rare thing these days, the spirits honoring us with their presence. They don't come here often anymore, not like they used to." She fell silent, and I couldn't help wondering what she'd meant by that. It seemed important somehow. Dhalâra shifted slightly, her dark hands resting on the windowsill. I knew I should stay where I was, conserve what little strength I had left, but the unease in her voice stirred something in me. What was so damn sad about watching those eyesores leave? Curiosity tugged at me. I muttered a curse and, despite my better judgment, pushed myself from the blankets. My head ached as I dragged myself upright, the room tilting as dizziness washed over me. I clenched my teeth and stood, bare feet pressing against the cool wood of the floor. Slowly I made my way toward the window, each step heavier than the last. Dhalâra glanced over her shoulder, surprised that I'd managed to get up, but she didn't stop me. I reached the window and leaned heavily against the frame, squinting against the pale morning light. Far below, the last of the Dhalâra were departing. The airborne shadow figures slipped through the trees, their forms already fading into wisps of mist as they vanished. Underneath them, I saw the horrors from the depths hauling themselves to the shore. They waded back into the water without hesitation, their massive shapes sinking beneath the surface. Farther out, Lord Helrath's ship was drifting into the horizon, its paddle wheels turning in slow, steady circles. Smoke curled from the crooked chimneys, dissolving into the morning sky, and the black vines clinging to its hull writhed one last time before the ship vanished. The nightmare seemed to dissolve in the light of dawn, but a strange chill remained in my chest. Something was wrong. The forest that had surrounded the lake yesterday hadn't returned. The smaller islands and arched bridges were still missing, as if they'd never existed. "Nothing's changed," I said, glancing toward Dhalâra. She gave a slow nod. "It won't." Where did the Veilswood go? It can't just have vanished like that. "The land reflects your promise. The way out won't reveal itself until your promise is fulfilled." I stared at her in disbelief, but Dhalâra did not flinch. "You're in the arms of the gods now." I turned back to the endless expanse of water, a knot of dread tightening in my chest. The lake shimmered under the rising sun, endless around the forbidden temple. My new home. My prison. "In 9 months from now, you're expected to give your answer. Azura will arrange a great ceremony. The entire order will be there as you proclaim whether you'll take up her mantle or take your leave. Until then, she has appointed me to watch over you." "Watch over me?" "Not in the way the Earthen watch us. It is their gaze under which you'll be judged. My role is simpler: to tend to you, if you need anything, and to make sure you are happy." "Happy?" "Yes. Azura may wish to speak with you from time to time, but as High Priestess of the Forbidden Temple and Archmistress of the Veiled Council, her duties keep her occupied. That's why she wants me to babysit me. Dhalâra tilted her head, the furrow in her brow deepening, as if trying to puzzle out my meaning.
You are not a baby.
She sounded genuinely perplexed.
I just want to help. Ajora says,
"Oh, for the love of Narya, shut up about Ajora." Dhalâra's lips parted, but no words came. She stared at me, her expression flickering between confusion and hurt. The silence stretched between us, and for a moment I thought she might argue. Instead, she lowered her gaze, smoothing the edges of her robe as if the task demanded her full attention. My gaze drifted from her to the doorway and caught on something that made me pause. My shoes. They were standing neatly by the frame, mud-streaked and battered, exactly as I remembered them being when I'd lost them, fleeing the lake. Dhalâra must have retrieved them. Why? Probably because Ajora had told her. I clenched my jaw. Why the hell did she give a damn if I had shoes or not? Cut out my eye? No problem. But heaven forbid I walk around barefoot. Gods, I hated this. The way Dhalâra spoke as if Ajora's fake kindness could smooth over the fact that she had just gouged my eye from my skull. The very idea of accepting anything from that madwoman made my blood boil. Dhalâra stood quietly, her hands folded before her, waiting. "I don't want your help," I said flatly. Her expression twitched, just enough to show that my words had stung. She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off before she could get a word in. I said no.
Let me at least take you to your new chambers. Ajora had them prepared just for you. They are warm and...
I don't care. My voice sharpened. I'm not staying where she wants me to stay. Dhalâra blinked, taken aback by the force in my tone.
There's food there, and a bed.
No. She hesitated, her gaze flickering towards the doorway, as if searching for an alternative.
Then, where would you like to go?
A memory drifted up from somewhere in the back of my mind. I pictured the overgrown place where I'd seen the statue of Legina, the immoral lady of Oblivion, staring down at me with those hollow, knowing eyes. The twisted branches, the creeping vines, the gnarled trees. I didn't know why my mind went there. All I knew was that I wanted to be alone. "The Forsaken Garden," I said. Dhalâra arched a brow, her concern flickering briefly, before she could mask it.
That place is not what Ajora had in mind for you.
I don't care. Take me there. She studied me for a moment, her book-like eyes unreadable. Then, with a small reluctant nod, she conceded.
Very well, if that is your wish.